So you know it's not a crime to be fascinated by all things criminal. And if you do like delving into the underworld, why not join us for a special live show on March 27th at the Cork Opera House? We'll be talking about the making of a cartel and all the wild and crazy stories that happened along the way. So why not join us for this special live show? Tickets from corkpodcastfestival.ie. So exactly, Eddie, I was going to ask you to tell us a little bit of background about Sil Fox, who he is. For those who don't remember him, he's the name certainly that is familiar to me, but probably because of your own work and interviews over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Sil Fox probably wouldn't be known to people watching this, listening to this podcast, but
maybe to their parents,
possibly to their parents.
Yes,
especially if you're from Dublin. He's a bit of a national treasure. He's an old school Irish comic, and he comes from a very, very poor background here in Dublin. He was from the Oliver Bond flats,
right,
down in the Liberties. Grew up in deprivation. He comes from a family of 5. His father died when he was just 4 years old.
And we should say he's currently 93, which would have meant he was born in the 1930s. So you're talking about him growing up at a time, probably the 40s and the 50s in Dublin in Oliver Bond.
Yeah. And his dad died, as I said, when he was just 4 years of age.
Right.
Leaving his mother a widow with 5 young children. And back then, the state were putting pressure on her to take the children off her because
right.
She was a single parent, a lone parent with all these young kids, and they're going to put them into industrial schools. And she fought hard to stop that,
Keep them together.
Which she did. Sil Fox might have had a completely different life.
Mm.
And his siblings had but for her intervention and her determination to keep her family together.
Right.
And she went out to work. I mean, she worked all the hours that God sent. She was a cleaner in the High Court for years and years and years. So she kept them all together. He left school at 16 then, and he went to work in a hat factory.
Right.
Making women's hats here in Dublin.
And actually all of that was big industry around there at the time. There was a lot of clothing factories and shoe factories and things like that provided employment for people over those years. They were poor, but most of them had a job.
That's right, yeah. And he was, like back then as well, women had to wear hats.
Yeah.
You had to have your head covered in those years going to Mass. And so that was her biggest market.
Yeah.
Women going to Mass, showing off their hats as well, so they would buy many hats. And he kept them in business. He always credits Pope John Paul the 23rd with launching his career as a comic.
Which was at what age? What age would he have been then?
He was 30 at that age.
Right, yeah.
So sometime around that time, Pope John Paul the 23rd decreed that women no longer had to wear head
really
going to Mass.
So we're talking into the 60s then. So he's born in 1933. So this was 1963 that his career started in comedy. Because it's interesting because all that industry around Oliver Bond, and then I had to dip into that because that's where the Kinahans came from. And to sort of tell the social history of the area, you could see how the likes of the hat factories, the clothing factories brought employment, but they all went. And sort of as you came into the 70s and particularly the 80s, there was mass unemployment around there because all those industries shut up, factory like the shoe factories and everything, and they went to different countries. And the people were left with no work, unemployed, and then in came the drugs.
Right.
And that was really part of the destruction. Now, that's not part of Sil Fox's story. He's 30, he's hitting the stage, he is going to make a name for himself as a comedian.
Yeah, and it started off by chance. In the lead up to becoming a professional, he used to tell jokes, tell gags, stand up and do a routine in pubs.
Yeah.
That was the thing. You go in, you put your name down, and you called up Sil Fox, and he'd come up and he'd do his routine. And he just got the buzz for it. He absolutely loved it, and was obviously very good at it. Loved the reaction he got from the audience.
Yeah.
So he began to go, this could be a career.
Yeah.
And of course, the cabaret scene in Dublin was huge around then as well. And so there was, and the pubs, cabarets and pubs. And
so they were kind of a mixture of music, comedy, just general entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. yeah. And so more and more he developed that. Then the big show bands, in the 60s, 70s, they would have an opening act, the likes of Joe Dole and
Right.
the likes of Dickie Rock. They'd have a comic.
Okay.
Not another music act, but a comic come on, warm up the audience, telling the gags. And they were huge because he was playing then to thousands of people. And he'd have his own cabaret shows as well. But well known for being the act opening the Joe Dolan show, all those big, Red Hurley, all those big Dickie Rock, all those big shows.
And what about his personal life then? What was going on with him? Did he marry? Did he have kids?
Yeah, he married and a couple of children. And, lived in Temple Oak.
Right.
His son is a videographer, and his daughter is a daughter living in Australia. She's home as we speak. So very, very close family, loving family. Great family, and very supportive wife. Which you need. It's a funny old business. In many ways, it's you're out all hours and all that kind of stuff. A lot of trust and everything like that. But he has great family life. Great family man. Yeah.
Okay. So, I mean, we're an unusual guy for us to be talking about on Crime World, but something has happened to him in the recent past, which is the reason that we are talking about him, because it is really horrendous.
It's horrendous. We're talking about 2018, December 2018. He's in his 80s. And still, if you met him, and I've been away with him for a few summers in Spain, and on a show there, starting Sunday World, or a media partner in. He's like a teenager.
Right.
He's very, very sprightly, very, very fit. Very, very young at heart.
Okay.
Very, very
Has he grandchildren nowadays and that kind of thing, or is his wife still alive?
His wife is still alive. Yeah. But she's in a home. I think she's got dementia now. But he's very young at heart. Loves socializing and going out to see other people's shows. He's been out to Dickie's shows and Red Hurley's shows. In December 2018, he went to a show here in the city, Bar Harry's on the Green. It was a big band night. Flo McSweeney was the singer, so he went out to enjoy the show.
Yeah.
During the show, he was moving around, and of course, he's a big celebrity. Sil Fox. Lots of people are engaging with him.
Probably doing selfies with him and that kind of thing.
Doing selfies with him. So he's talking to one group of people who had pulled him aside. He's standing there, all sitting, and while he's talking to them, on his left side, there's a woman tapping him on the shoulder. And he looked around and he said, "Yeah, I'll be there in a second." And she tapped him again. When he finished with that group, he went to this lady, and she's with some friends.
Yeah.
And she wanted a selfie. So he put his arm around her. The selfie was taken. It took all of 3 seconds. Everyone was happy, and off he went. A couple of months later, we're into early 2019 now. A Garda arrived at his house, and he was informed that an allegation of sexual assault had been made against him from that night by that middle-aged lady. Of course, he was absolutely shocked. And then his whole life changed in that moment. He was due to go very, very shortly after on holidays with his family. And while on that holiday, he broke the news to his son and then to his wife. And, and his world just turned upside down.
What had she said at the time, or what did the police tell him at that stage that she had said?
So she said that while the photograph was being taken, and he had his arm around her, that he dropped his left hand to her groin, and fondled her in her private area.
Right.
Basically, is what
she had said. Now,
molested her there.
All this time, this was in front of a camera. People had cameras out, were taking pictures.
A friend was taking a photograph.
Right.
But there was CCTV. And this is what, this is where the case fell. Or in his case, this is where he won his case. She said that the encounter took about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
and that he was fondling her.
Right.
When in fact the CCTV showed it was only 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And that his hand was on the table during that entire, the hand that was supposed to be fondling her was on the table and was visible during that whole very, very brief 3-second encounter.
Yeah.
Nothing had happened. And in court.
So in court, 1 second now, because so when the guards come to him with this allegation in 2019, they're saying that this woman has made this allegation, but the CCTV is available. So have they viewed it by the time they come to him?
Well, presumably the DPP has the evidence and, has viewed it. Presumably.
So in the aftermath of him being questioned, he denies all allegations to the police. Yeah. He's horrified. He tells them that as far as he knows, this was just a quick selfie. He certainly did nothing of the kind. He's actually brought to court, to the Dublin District Court in 2020, charged with sexual assault. Charged with sexual assault. So the DPP gets this evidence and sends him forward for trial, essentially.
Bizarrely.
Yeah.
The most bizarre thing.
Right.
The evidence is there, but the DPP decides that there is enough evidence to try with this. You would know more about this, Nicola, from dealing with cases.
Yeah.
That there is enough evidence. When in fact,
So what happened in court?
So, in court, the judge decided, and I just have make sure I get it correctly. First of all, there were several court cases,
right.
Several appearances.
Okay, yeah.
The big trauma for him was the first one, because his legal people had applied for non-disclosure of his identity.
Because it was a sexual crime, yeah.
Which seemed perfectly reasonable,
Yeah.
He could be named if he was convicted, if he was guilty and convicted, fine. But, he was an innocent man. So, but the judge decided, no, that the media could
name him.
So the following day after the very first case, he's on the front pages of the daily newspapers. And this around the time of the Me Too movement, when major celebrities, horrific guys like Harvey Weinstein around the world, were being outed, rightly so, convicted, sent to jail. And suddenly he's another celebrity.
His face is there in the mix. Yes.
The Irish celebrity.
Yeah.
And every time he appeared in court, he appeared in the paper as, Sil Fox, charged with sexual assault, and as he said himself, people think there's no smoke. There's no,
And he's silenced. He can't do anything but go along with the court case, because he would be in contempt if he turned around and tried to say, presumably he's going to plead not guilty, and that's really his time to state that he's not guilty. Yeah. So he does do that, I imagine.
Yeah. So the case actually went on until May 2020. It happened in
2018 originally.
2019.
Yeah.
Early 2019. It's gone to court.
Yeah.
Initially, so he's had nearly 18 months.
Right.
Of torture, during which he's gone and had counselling. He was in and out of hospital. He became a bit of a hermit. Had been a very sociable man. He went through hell. Lost a lot of his friends, he said. He was on radio at that time as well. For 10 years, he had been part of Liveline on a Friday.
Yeah.
With Joe Duffy. They
had
what they call a funny.
I remember that, yeah.
With Sil was one of, they had several comedians on. Sil was one of those guys. Naturally enough, RT dropped him when the case came to court.
Right.
And he never returned to radio. They eventually dropped that segment anyway. So he lost all of that. So on May the 27th in 2020, Judge Paula Murphy in the Dublin District Court dismissed the charge. Right. She found there were significant discrepancies between the complainant's account of what happened and the CCTV footage. She ruled that there was no indication that something untoward had happened at all. The woman had claimed that he'd put, as I said, his hand on her groin and assaulted her for 30 seconds. CCTV showed that the encounter lasted 3 seconds, and in the footage, Sil Fox's left hand could be seen on the counter the entire time. The judge also noted that the woman smiled in the photo and showed no indication of being upset or distressed in the CCTV footage. And the court was told that the woman's friends, including the one taking the picture, had not seen the alleged assault.
You know, you would think that it would be pretty silly to, you know, decide to choose that moment to sexually assault somebody when someone's taking your photograph.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you're in a crowded room where all focus is on you because you're the celebrity going around doing the... But that's besides the point. But yes, the Me Too movement, maybe perhaps all of that in the ether might have been something that landed him in court, because the DPPs, you know, they're not supposed to be influenced obviously by anything other than the evidence in the court. But there was that sort of frenzy really around the Me Too movement, wasn't there?
Yeah. So it is bizarre that ever went to court. So now Sil Fox is suing the DPP, state, and the Garda Commissioner, and his case
for sort of wrongful arrest.
Yes. So he's seeking damages for intentional or negligent infliction of emotional distress. A date has been set for March the 20th in the High Court to make an application, but he wants the case to be heard by a jury, in front of a jury, rather than solely in front of a judge. So he's suing the state prosecutor as well as the Garda Commissioner, the Justice Minister, and the Attorney General. And
these, of course, will be civil proceedings.
Civil proceedings, yeah.
That he is entitled to take. But tell me about, so he's somebody you know all these years. How is he now? Like, he's 93, which is a fantastic age, and presumably he's suing. He's hardly looking for a big load of money here. He's feeling this is something that affected him to such. He's taking a stance at 93. You'd imagine you wouldn't be looking for a windfall in compensation claim.
No,
it's not about the money, is what I mean.
Not about the money. There is a principle here that he should never have been identified.
He says,
and unless he was convicted, which he wasn't, totally innocent man. So by being identified, he was guilty straight away. In a lot of people's eyes, it wiped, like as he said himself, when you're in your late 80s. And you're in your 90s.
Yeah.
You don't have many years. All those years since that allegation in 2018 have been taken away from him. Final years. He lost out on so much. He lost out on lots of big shows. That it's not about the money either.
The end of his career really was
being involved,
derailed,
being engaged.
Yeah.
And he said he wanted to retire on his own terms. He wanted to go out with one big show celebrating the amazing life he had in show business. That was taken away from him.
And of course, we're not claiming there was a false allegation made by this woman. We have no idea. She made that allegation. Undoubtedly, she believed that's what happened at that time. It's the DPP in taking the case, having looked at the evidence, which should have been corroborating into what she's saying, which was actually, telling him, what was there from the CCTV was saying the exact opposite. His hand was nowhere near the woman. It was 3 seconds, not 30. And also there was no corroborating statements from friends who were looking directly at them when this happened. So his gripe is ultimately with the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, who decides what cases shall go before the courts and what cases won't.
It's an interesting case.
It's an amazingly interesting case.
Very few people take this kind of an action.
Yeah.
DPP.
It's also really interesting to see the other side of these things, when there isn't, in this case, the evidence, the case was dismissed, the ongoing effects it has on somebody within their family life and in general. Like, it's an awful thing to be said about you if it's not true.
It's probably the worst allegation that any human could ever, be hit with.
Yeah.
Fortunately, his family knew him well.
And they have stood by him. And
his wife said, you're not guilty, so absolutely.
Yeah.
His son. But, it's they're sad for, their dad, their granddad.
Yeah, for sure. And his reputation. And what did they say? That you can't, if you lose a fortune, you can earn it back. But if you lose your reputation, it's almost impossible to earn it back,
and
essentially.
He's always going to be that. He's always been that guy for recent years, the guy that had a sexual...
He feels that still hangs over him.
Yeah, it's...
So are you going to are you going to attend the courts for this to see what happens or what's said?
It's your gig.
Yeah, well, maybe it's your gig because you can come back and tell us what happened.
I will be,
following up the story. Well, let's follow it because it is really, really fascinating to see, and what he has to say. And I suppose maybe put a little light on what happens when the person is innocent.
Yeah.
And the aftermath, as opposed to we mainly talk about those that are guilty. So
absolutely,
this is somebody who is at the other side of the whole thing.
It's a landmark. It'll be a landmark case.
Yeah. Well, as far I actually don't know that it's. I accept totally what you're saying, that it's the very unusual for people to take a case against the DPP. Probably, absolutely is. Mostly people take a case against.
Yeah.
Who would be, we saw with, say, Nikita Hand, there was no criminal charges brought against Conor McGregor. So she took a civil case against him. Yeah. So you have the applicant and the defendant in that.
Yeah.
So the defendant in the case that Sil Fox is taking is essentially the state, Yeah. So, well, we'll definitely follow it up. So thanks very much, Eddie Rowley.
Cheers, Nicola.
Have you checked out our new website, crimeworld.com, where you'll find ad-free exclusive content, including our new series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. Subscribers can listen to all 9 parts, but for those of you not yet signed up, here's an extract from part 1. It's July 25th. Ipswich Crown Court. 3 of Ireland's most notorious criminals flicker onto the courtroom screens from prisons across England. Thomas Bomber Kavanagh appears on Zoom from Belmarsh Prison, looking surprisingly tanned and trim in a dark grey t-shirt. Beside him on the screen, his lieutenants Gary Flash Vickery and Daniel Canning appear from other prisons, fidgeting in their seats. In contrast, Kavanagh sits bolt upright, with arms folded across his chest, and listens intently in an interview room with bathroom blue walls. As a female prison guard nips in and out of Kavanagh's interview room, the exasperated judge, Justice Martin Levitt, stops proceedings to scold, "We'll just wait for Belmarsh to stop coming in and out of the room because it's interrupting us yet again." Over the morning, there are various arguments set out by wigged barristers who call each other "my learned friend" in clipped British accents. But the outcome is clear. Kavanagh has 3 months to pay back more than €1.26 million in criminal assets, or face another 12 years in prison. One by one, the court strips him of his assets: luxury watches, designer clothes, equity in a Majorcan property, rental income, cash seized by police, and even the cost of a family holiday to Cancun. And the biggest blow, his half share of a fortified Tamworth mansion, the marble-floored stronghold where he reigned like an Italian mob boss in the English Midlands. The court was told his wife, Joanne Byrne, the sister of David Byrne, who was murdered in the Regency, had not responded to a court notice. Kavanagh, sitting at a wooden desk in Belmarsh, betrays no sign of emotion at the prospect of losing the family home. But behind that blank stare is a man who once weaponised fear with precision. Police wiretaps revealed a mobster, almost scientific, in his obsession with torture, casually calculating exactly how much pain he could inflict, terrifying men into loyalty without paralysing them completely. Britain's National Crime Agency finally brought him down, jailing him for 26 years. Now, here in Ipswich Crown Court, they're dismantling what's left of his empire. And then, one final twist. It appears that Bomber couldn't do his time. In a scheme that wouldn't have been out of place in a Guy Ritchie movie, Kavanagh tried to shave some time off his 21-year sentence for drug smuggling by orchestrating a plot from behind bars. Hoping to dupe authorities into handing him a lighter sentence, he tried to lead the National Crime Agency officers to a weapons stash. Instead, he was rumbled and slapped with another 6 years. We spoke to some of the NCA officers who were involved in taking Bomber down, including one who was tasked with following the money. It was a job that took him across international borders.
This particular case, I would say, was complex because we had overseas assets in Ireland and in Spain, Lanzarote, and there was also the inquiries when pulling together the investigation as well. Because there was Dutch hauliers involved. There was drugs that were coming in, say, from the Netherlands. They were coming in from Spain. So there was quite a lot of international partners we were involved with when we were pulling this together. So the actual value of the drugs, which was agreed on between the prosecution and defence, eventually was 10,470,833, and that was it was 3,750,833 of cannabis and 6,720,000 pounds worth of cocaine. The benefit figure for Thomas, with all the other assets involved, we agreed on just over 12 million of benefit from his criminality. And we started off somewhere around 15, 16 million. So we've come down about 4 million. And the majority of that is the difference in the value of the drugs. Knowing the significance of him, it was really great result to get him convicted and now to get the confiscation order against him as well and have that benefit hanging over him.
Officers who went through the rows of designer gear in Bomber's gated mansion were astonished at the sheer scale of luxury goods. The drug proceeds had been splurged on luxury and security in almost equal measure. The place was sealed, reinforced doors, bulletproof glass, and cameras covering every approach. Inside was a display of wealth that would rival that of Imelda Marcos. Money was lavished on Moncler jackets, a shoe collection worthy of a Saudi princess, and a watch collection fit for a Premier League dressing room. The list goes on. 30 pairs of identical Armani jeans, Gucci labels, a collection of handbags that a Kardashian would be proud of. This was how the cartel's profits were laundered, through spending sprees and rolls of cash handed across the shop counters in Harrods. The definition of ill-gotten gains was hanging in wardrobes in his luxury mansion in Tamworth. Cartel members know the risk of peddling drugs across international borders, but when officers start rifling through their six-figure wardrobes, confiscating their luxury watches and handbag collections, it does hit a nerve.
A lot of criminals are quite happy, getting imprisoned for the crime is part of the job. But when you actually say, now we're going to take all your assets, that's when it gets personal, because that's the reason they're committing crime, is for their lifestyle. That is their job. And we are then taking it all away or getting an order to take it away. So that's when it can get quite personal.
The court's inventory of Bomber's lavish spending gave an inkling into just how far removed he'd become from the day-to-day drug trade. He oversaw the delegation of smuggling routes, of finance and of enforcement to trusted lieutenants. The proceedings in Ipswich Crown Court didn't just mark the fall of Thomas Bomber Kavanagh's personal empire. They also signalled something far bigger. Bomber's collapse marks the first true fracture in what had long looked like an impenetrable underworld machine. The cartel's chief strategist, the man who kept its international supply lines running smoothly, had finally been taken down. Seen as untouchable for years, his sentence for importing tens of millions of pounds of drugs was a major shot across the bow of the Kinahan cartel. And just 2 weeks after Kavanagh's sentencing, the United States raised the stakes.
And so today, the United States Department of State is pleased to announce a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to the financial disruption of the KTCO or the arrest and convictions of its leaders, Christopher Vincent Kinahan, Daniel Joseph Kinahan, and Christopher Kinahan Jr.
You've been listening to an extract from our 9-part series, The Science of Fear, about the rise and fall of Daniel Kinahan's right-hand man, Thomas Bomber Kavanagh. To listen to all 9 parts, log on to crimeworld.com and hit subscribe.